Hey guys, I wanted to make a quick video for you on how to use my light leaks and lens flares that are available for download on my website, and also the Fiend flow actions that come with all of my downloads, what they are all about and how to use them. So we're here in Lightroom, and in Lightroom I like to go through my presets in the develop module here and see if anything looks good on the image that I can start working with in Photoshop. So right away, let's just pick one here. Let's throw George on here. George is a nice vintage, old school preset. It's part of my old school pack that you can download. It's kind of cool, so we're going to go with it. We're going to right click, edit in Photoshop, and show you guys what these actions and these lens flares are all about. So in Photoshop, the first thing I'm going to go over is the Fiend flow actions. When you double click them, they're going to load up in your actions palette here. If you can't see them, you can just go to your window and select actions here, or Alt F9. In here, the first thing that I always go to is my frequency separation pack. There's a lot of other actions in here that you don't necessarily need. They're kind of redundant, but they're there if I don't want to run this entire pack here. When you hit play with this pack, it takes your image and it's going to break it down into a whole bunch of layers. These layers are just layers that I like to use in my workflow. And you know, all of these ones with the white mask are just standard adjustment layers down here that you can select. And I just happen to use them all the time, so I included them in the action. So levels are levels. If you want to use them, you can. Brightness and contrast, a popular one. Curves are very popular to use. Color balance and my hue and saturation. Those aren't doing anything to the image right now, but if you want to start playing with them, you can double click on them and start adjusting the sliders to however it's going to suit the image. The main thing about this action pack is done here in your dodge and your burn and your frequency separation healing brush, and then I'll paint on a blank layer sometimes if I want to, and then you also have your sharpening mask. So those are your main layers for the frequency separation. These are the main layers for my workflow. So dodge and burn is kind of an art form. You got to just gain experience by doing it and getting used to how it works, but you use it to highlight, accentuate your highlights, you know, darken the darks and lighten the lights. That's basically what dodge and burn is all about, and it can make a huge difference on your image. The way I like to dodge and burn is I like to use a brush, and because we're using curve adjustment layers here, we're going to brush on the black layer with a white brush, and I use flow. A lot of people use opacity, but I use flow instead of opacity. That's what works for me. Use what works for you. We're going to use flow at around 5% for dodging. Yeah, that's what we're doing right now, dodging. Just accentuate a little bit of the highlights, you know, brighten up the eyes a bit, and highlights on the face. And you'll have to get good at contouring and whatnot, and understand where on the face you want to highlight to get good at making it look pleasing to look at. I don't know. But we're not really going to go over any of that stuff. I'm just going to give you an example of how to use the actions. So I'm sort of evening out the skin tones a little bit here with dodge and dodge and burn, and that's essentially what those two layers are. That's my main way of dodging and burning. And then you can jump down into the healing brush layer here. You can hit J or healing brush, and this is where you would use it just like a clone stamp to do your skin touch-ups, get rid of blemishes. Michelle doesn't have any blemishes on her skin, so it's a bad example here, but we could get rid of freckles if we wanted to, even though you don't really want to, because freckles are awesome. But that's what healing brush is all about. You just alt click an area that you like and paint it on to an area that you don't like. You know, we can get crazy and get rid of, you know, bags under the eyes and stuff like that. But the thing with frequency separation and this healing brush layer is you want to be conservative about it. You don't want to go crazy painting up your image with frequency separation, because natural tends to be more pleasing. It tends to be better. So avoid going crazy with your healing brush. The next layer is just a blank layer, and it's a layer that I like to do dodge and burn with colors. I'll just grab a brush at 3%, and I'll just alt-click an area of skin tone and brighten it up for dodge. And then I'll just paint on this blank layer with a skin tone to dodge. And I'm just sort of overdoing it just to show you. You know, brighten up the brights, darken the darks. So if you want, now we want a dark, so we can just grab a dark skin tone, make it darker if we want. Yeah, see, that one's not working so good, so I probably wouldn't use it. And that's dodge and burn with your paintbrush. And then there's there are other dodge and burn methods. There's so many dodge and burn methods. My favorite is curve adjustment layer. So that's what's included in the action. And then healing brush if you want to do some frequency separation. And then lastly is the sharp mask. You jump on that, and that's where you're going to do your sharpening. You're going to do it with a black brush. And you know, anywhere between 5 and 10 flow is good. And I'll show you really quick. You got to be subtle with it, but it's going to pop. You know, you pop your skin textures a bit, the freckles, and pop the eyes. You know, in focus areas, just give that extra sharpening. Especially clothing fabric is fun. Places to not sharpen would be like the bokeh, the out of focus areas. You don't want to sharpen those, otherwise you start to get that grungy HDR look that is not favorable. That's my actions. The last layer here is just the backup layer, and altogether they're grouped in metal tacos here. That's just a goofy name I gave them. And you can see the before and after. Things you can do with this group is you can change the opacity if you only want a little bit of it, or you could throw a mask on it and paint in areas that you want this to be or not be. And let's move right into light leaks and lens flares, which are available for download. How do you use them? Well, here's what you get. You get over 150 of these fancy flares. I didn't make them in Photoshop. I actually took photos of light to create these, and they are pretty awesome. I use them all the time. So let's give you an example. I mean, you can get really cheesy with these things, but this is how you use them. So we'll grab a flare and we'll throw it on the image, and you just stretch out the corners to cover your image, hit enter, and now you need to screen it over here with your adjustments or your blending mode. And now you've got it, a fancy light flare on your image. A couple things you can do with these is you can you know, you gotta adjust them to make them fit your image. You can Control T, there, it's working now. I don't know why it was delayed there, but you can drag it around to areas you want it to be on your image, or you can put an adjustment layer on it just to play with it. Like if you want to do levels, you just alt click and click between the two layers. Now it's only affecting my flares. Now I can just play with the flares here in my adjustment layers. You know, you can use brightness and contrast or curves or levels. I'm kind of a fan of levels, so I use levels to play with things. And then that's it. If you really want to tone it down, you can just adjust the opacity of it. And that's an example of a flare. Let's give you another example real quick here. I don't know. You just sort of look at them and decide what you might want or what might look good on your images. So let's grab, I don't know, let's grab this one here. And on this one here, I think I want to make it come from the opposite corner. So I'm just going to right click and flip on the horizon. And again, screen it with your blending modes, like so. Hit enter. And there we've put another cheesy flare on there. Just remember to not overdo it. We're overdoing it for demonstration purposes. But I mean, now I can take a look at this and I can make use of one of my action layers here and do a levels on the whole image, because I like to play with levels. Just darken it up a bit. And that's light leaks and flares. Really simple. They really do add a decent effect to a lot of images, but there are a lot of images that they just won't work on. So, you know, use them in the right moment. What else do I include in my downloads? I have this thing called a clean sensor and a dirty sensor. And what it is the dirty sensor was, back in the day, I really wanted that gritty, spotty, dirty, noisy, dirty overlay on my images to get that vintage look. You know, you have specks of hair or you have sensor spots. I wanted that, so I created that to overlay. And then when I was creating that, I also made this sensor that had a sort of a rainbow color that I overlaid on that kind of just enhanced the image. So they're both included in there. Instead of screening these on, you overlay them, and it just gives it a subtle pop. And the dirty one obviously puts some grit on there, which you can mask in and out if you want. Those are what's included in the downloads. That's how you use them. And like I said, don't overdo it. Less is more when it comes to editing, but that's what we've been doing. It's fun. I think you guys will like them. And the presets, they're definitely amazing. I love them. If you don't have Lightroom, I'll give you a quick example of the Camera Raw presets. Photoshop's great. You can just go up to filters, and you can just go right into Camera Raw filters. And then you go over to your presets, which are available for download, and you just select one. And here, Michelle is dope. There we go. That's one of my presets. And you can just throw it on for just Photoshop if you don't have Lightroom. Otherwise, you can use Lightroom. You can use both, whatever works for you. This obviously is going to mess things up, but whatever. Let's make it look super vintagey. That's it. That's how you use some of the things that I have available for download. If you have any questions, give me a shout. Over and out.